Because we don't want to, in my view, we don't want to just waste money that we don't have when we know we can't survive, right? But if we really think long term, then we'll start marshaling our resources.
Boy, so you and I agree completely on this, and this is the message that I've been trying to send out for months, is that people think it's going to end next month. It's going to end next month, but it doesn't end, and that's when we run out of powder, to use your term. And then we're in big trouble. So you got to hold some of the powder back so that you have the resources to seize it when the market's disruption starts to subside. And that's what worries me, is that as an industry, we're disposing our resources now when we don't have the opportunity to dig out, and we're going to run out of those resources. So I really think that federal government program now is very important. I think the PPP program helped our industry hugely. I'm sure you agree.
Absolutely.
I think that there's some inventory credit programs from the feds tax-wise that could make a lot of sense. Restaurants are going to have to invest substantially in inventory, and certainly from the supply side, the farmers want us to do that, and the distributors want us to do that. So I think that that's really important, and I think if the federal government stepped up with a revised PPP plan so we could get some payroll stimulus and some type of an inventory credit to get us going, I think that it would make a huge impact, and I'm worried because they're not talking about these things now in Washington. I don't want to share someone else's thoughts. I want to create my own original thoughts. I want to create my own original solutions. I want to look at situations and come up with my own phrasing, my own words, and do it my way.
This is the Jon Taffer Podcast.
Shut it down!
Ooh, shut it down. We're just starting. Hello, everybody. Well, I'm still sitting in my house here in Las Vegas, but it's actually a pretty good week, Corey. Things are going pretty well.
It has. It's just hotter
as
than hell.
So it's about 115 degrees here. I drove to the Strip yesterday, Corey. When I was down at the Strip, the thermometer in my car said 121 when I was driving on the Strip. I mean, you're scared your car's going to break down at any moment. You don't exactly drive around in 120-degree weather with a lot of confidence. Then what else happens, and I know a lot of people experiencing this around the country, is you leave your car outside in the parking lot. It's like 140 fucking degrees in your car, and you turn your AC on. It never cools off by the time you get where you're going. It's still hot in the car. Years ago, I opened up this operation in Fargo, North Dakota, and I also owned the Hooters franchise in North Dakota years ago. And I'll never forget the first time I went up to Fargo, North Dakota in the wintertime, Corey. I had never experienced what 40 degrees below zero was before. And it freaked me out. And I was staying in a hotel because I was building the property. They didn't have an apartment or anything. And I'm in a rental car. And when I pulled up to the hotel, there were electrical outlets in the front of each parking space. And I didn't think much about that at the time. I later learned those for engine block heaters because your car is not going to start in the morning. So you go up to your room, you go to sleep, you get up in the morning, you go downstairs, and your car is 40 degrees below zero. You can't touch your fucking steering wheel. You can't sit down in the seat. You can't even open a car door. It's unfathomable. So the ecology-minded listeners are going to kill me for this. So after 2 nights of that, I said, fuck it. I filled the car up with gas and I let it run all night long in the parking lot with the fan on high and the heat all the way up. Now, these were before the digital thermometers, so you just put the slide up to hot right on the heating control. And then I'd go up to my room and I'd go to sleep, and in the morning I'd come down and the engine would still be running. Right, and it only used about a quarter of a tank of gas, idling all night long. But it was still fucking cold in the car because the engine was idling, so it didn't get warm. Now, it heated up a lot faster, but it was still fucking freezing in the car when I let it running all night. Then I evolved to another hotel, and that hotel then had a bellman in it. And I used to give my car keys to the bellman every night with a time written on it, 7:30 at other. And he would take my rental car and drive it under the canopy at the time I told him to. And I'd write 7:30, but I wouldn't come down till like 9 fucking o'clock because I would let the heater run for an hour and a half to get the car warm. Man, was it cold. I must say, I loved Fargo. I loved the people of Fargo. It was really great to be in business there. But man, those winters were brutal, and I think if I'm not mistaken, there's about 6 days of summer up there.
So would you take the hot over the cold, or?
Now, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I guess I sort of would. Yeah. I'm not a fan of the cold. That's why I moved to Las Vegas, and before here I moved to Florida because I grew up in New York, and I'm used to cold, but I'm not used to 40 below zero. That's a whole different degree of cold. Yeah. I guess I would take the heat over the cold if I had a choice. I'm not into the whole snow scene.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the cold lasts longer than the heat.
It does, and also it's. But this heat is so hot that you don't even want to leave your fucking house.
Right.
I mean, you're like a prisoner in your house. It's unbearable. So I guess when it's 120 degrees, it's no different than a snowstorm. Either one of them are going to get you inside your house. But good week, Corey. I mean, amazing things going on. I hate when there's stuff going on that I'm not allowed to talk about. That's really fucking cool and really freaking exciting, but I'm not allowed to talk about it yet.
Yeah.
So I can just tell people little hints, though, can't I?
Yeah. I mean, we might have to cut it out later, but go for it.
Well, I'm just going to say it then. Let's hope we don't have to cut it out. It's a new TV show project I'm very, very excited about with a network that I can't mention, but we're working on that tomorrow. Big conference call. I'm very excited about that. We just finished a whole new whiskey deal that we're doing, which we're very, very excited about. We're working on that. And then, of course, Taffer Seltzer is always exciting to me. Hey, by the way, where's my seltzer of the day? I have this deal with you. So I'm trying to drink seltzers every day because I really love them. And we have 7 flavors. So Corey is responsible for picking the flavor of the day. All right. Now, you're not going to blindfold me or nothing. Okay, so he's giving me an elderberry. So this is Taffer's Sparkling Seltzer, and I love the sound. So we open it. So this is Taffer's original. This is actually elderflower. And when people think elderflower, this thing is freaking delicious.
Let's see that label.
So there it is.
There it is.
You notice it says sparkling craft cocktail on it? I love these things, Corey. These I challenge anybody to find a seltzer that tastes better than ours. Let's see how this one is. Man, do you like the elderflower?
I do. Not one of my top ones, but I definitely top 3.
Which one you like to do? Watermelon? Which one?
I'm a strawberry guy, and then
strawberry
I
basil.
like the cucumber jalapeno.
Actually, those are the 2 number 1 and 2 sellers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I really like that cucumber jalapeno.
So you're with the masses, Corey.
I am. I guess I am.
So I'm pretty excited about, those business things going on. And, guys, I said this last week. I just want to say it again. This pandemic is starting to tick down now, right? There is a vaccine in the future. If our federal government could get it together and get in the same freaking room and talk a little bit, we'd get our stimulus packages done, which are very important to the restaurant and some other industries, as well as a lot of individuals. But we are heading on the way out of this. So if we had to climb a mountain, Corey, I think we're past the top of the mountain, and I think we're on the way down the mountain now. And that should encourage us all. And when you think about the restaurant industry and all the news shows that I've done, Corey, and I've done, I think, PR agency sends me these printouts, and I think we've done over 4 billion, with a B, media impressions from my in-house studio in the past 5 months, which is really incredible. So we've been on MSNBC, CNBC, Fox News, Fox Business. We've been in pretty much every major newspaper, most major radio stations, Corey, right? We've been in all the food service publications, the restaurant industry publications, Entrepreneur Magazine, and other business publications. We have been all over the place just from sitting here in the studio in my house and trying to get our message out and trying to stand up for our industry, as well as help everybody deal with this thing. And, every once in a while in life, you meet somebody who just is, you say to yourself, man, this guy's top of his game. This guy's like the freaking best. And, when you think about what our hospitality industry is going through today, and I remind everybody it's the largest employer in the world, is travel and hospitality. And when you think about what we're going through as an industry and the fact that maybe 50% of our independent restaurants might be closed by the end of this pandemic, it's a horrifying time, but it's also a positive time for those who know how to market in these situations. And dare I say, my great-grandfather got rich during the Depression, Corey. He was just a modest man. He happened to have some money. And when the Depression happened, real estate prices went down, all prices went down, and he had a few dollars. So he bought some stuff at a low price, some businesses, some real estate. And he died a very wealthy man because he understood the time he was in. And he adjusted what he did around the time. Now, in the next few months, there's going to be great real estate opportunities out there. Landlords are going to be aggressive to rent spaces, to sell spaces. That's opportunity. In the next few months, consumers are going to start to go out again, Corey, aren't they? Right? They're going to feel safer. They're going to have antibodies or have a vaccine, but they're going to start to come out again. That's opportunity. And when you think about the fact that when people come out again and start going back to work again in big numbers, they're going to have more disposable income, aren't they? That's opportunity. And then when you think about the fact that people are locked up in their houses for months right now, And pent up demand is not bullshit. It's a real thing. That's opportunity. So those of us who look at this moment and look and seek and smell and position yourself for the new opportunities that are out there are going to get rich as a result of the changing market conditions. And that's not evil. That's not bad. That's simply taking advantage of the market opportunities that are before you. So, do you want to be one of those? And how important is knowledge? How important is analytics of business to know what you're doing to make certain that your investment is right? How important is education to young people right now who are looking to enter all of these industries? So these are big questions. These are big issues, and I wanted to talk about them a little bit today. So I have a good friend of mine, Stowe Shoemaker, and Stowe is the dean of the William F. Harrah College of Hotel Administration at UNLV. So Stowe Shoemaker, Dean Shoemaker, runs the number one ranked hospitality university in America. Top of his game, nobody better. The university, none better. The culinary programs, the marketing programs, all of the opportunities that are created at UNLV is adapting to the marketplace, just like we need to right now. So education is adapting to the marketplace just like we are. And what are they doing to adapt to the marketplace is important to all of us to understand. So I wanted to have Stowe on. I wanted him to talk about what's going on in the industry from his view. I wanted to talk about how UNLV, the number one ranked hospitality university in the country, is reacting to this, how students are reacting to this. And I wanted to get his vision of the future and where he thinks we're going. So Stowe Shoemaker, I just want you to understand the depth of this bio. He served as Lincy Professor at UNLV, at the Donald Hubbs Distinguished Professor at the Conrad N. Hilton College of Hotel Administration at the University of Houston, also one of the finest hospitality schools in the world. For many years, he was a member of the Executive Education Facility at Cornell. So the big three are Cornell, Houston, and UNLV. Stowe has been at all three. He also has a major background in marketing as well as the mathematics of casino games, analytics and strategic pricing, revenue management, customer loyalty programs. He's conducted research in these areas as well as the hospital healthcare field. And interestingly enough, Corey, there's a whole new concept of health tourism now. And being on the board of a national hospital as I am, I put out this premise for people to think about. You see, if you had, let's say, cancer, Corey, okay, should you go to the doctor in your neighborhood who's okay, or should you travel to a doctor who's great?
I'm traveling.
You bet your ass you are. So the point of healthcare becoming more national is a very powerful thing right now. So health travel is getting significant, and great hospitals, like the Cleveland Clinic as an example, has now hotels that connect to these facilities. Because if you want the best care, coronary care, for example, Cleveland Clinic, you would go to Cleveland, you would be with the finest doctors, you'd stay in a hotel, and that's health-based tourism. And Las Vegas is becoming a health tourism destination as well, with Cleveland Clinic involvement and others. So I want to talk about the future. I want to talk about the industry. I want to talk about education. And I want to talk a little bit about inspiration because I see good things ahead. So, Stowe, good afternoon. What a pleasure to have you, my friend.
It's great to be here, John. Thank you so much.
I got to start this by looking you in the eyes because we're here on our computer screens looking at each other. I got to start this by saying, go Knights, go.
Absolutely. They're on tonight, so hopefully we'll get a win and get a few days off before we move to the next round.
I'm with you, and
so it's exciting.
It is an exciting time. You know, Stowe, you know me pretty well, and for our listeners to know, Stowe and I are friends, and he and his team were on Bar Rescue last year. We did a very special episode, which many people say is their favorite, Stowe, where we work with the students and your amazing team. But imagine what it's like, folks, to be dean of the number one ranked hospitality university in the country, and the responsibility that means for educating and preparing our entire industry for the future. And you know, Stowe, when I look at your background, you're not only incredibly statistical, right, in the way you look at gaming. But I love your background, how you really were in the industry. You focused on revenue management. You focused then in the casino space on developing gaming, particular games, statistical return on games, analysis. You really came in your pure roots with a very analytical background, didn't you?
I did. I was very fortunate. And I think I think one of the things I started off in marketing in the hospitality business. And I think being in marketing, you're just always curious really about why people do the things they do. So that's why I went off and studied consumer research, studied statistics, so I could learn how to ask questions. And as you saw on my resume, I was involved with the team that helped invent this chicken soft taco. So it's only, this is just really part of my roots, and I'm so lucky.
And you're extremely creative, but I want to talk about, so from this analytical background, and you had an opportunity to be at Houston, which is an incredible hospitality school, Cornell and UNLV. So I would call it the big three. And you had an opportunity to work and be on all three of those campuses. Did you want to be an educator when you were young?
I did. Well, actually, I think what really made me want to be an educator was when I was doing the consulting. And so when I worked for a company called Restaurant Research Associates, and they're the ones where we worked with Taco Bell to create the chicken soft taco, I loved learning. But I realized that all the cool stuff we were doing, because we were doing it for private industry, we couldn't share it. And I felt that the fun thing about learning and knowledge is being able to share it. So because I couldn't share it because of confidentiality agreements, I thought what I really need to do is become an academic, so then I can do the research, share, and then bring everybody else along to help change their lives the way my life was changed through hospitality.
Yeah, that's powerful. But something else you said a couple of minutes ago, Stowe, I get to work in that independent restaurant world, and I'm out there every day. And it frustrates me when I see independent restaurateurs, maybe 65% of them don't even have P&Ls. And they're not using the analytics that's available to them through their POS systems and, through their purchasing. And, I always say that the customer's voice is in those analytics, and the customer's choices are in those analytics. Do you think an understanding of those dynamics have made you, have deepened your ability to create results in the industry?
I think absolutely. I think, one of the things that we always want to tend to do is sort of guess, like, we hear one or two anecdotal stories and we think that is really the answer. And what statistics does and analytics does is it really teaches us to dive deeper, to really helps us look at the different segments, to really look at what's really driving the behavior. And so when I started taking statistics classes in my master's degree, and I took a multivariate PhD class as a master's student, my eyes just opened wide because I thought, oh my gosh, here's how you can really tell what's happening in the business. And I was sort of ahead of my time because everybody's like, what do you want to study analytics for? And now, of course, it's really driving the industry because as you said, if we don't have the analytics, we can't tell whether we're doing well or not until it's too late.
Yeah. What's exciting is analytics are real time today. Back in the days when you started, it was historical data that you were looking at, trying to predict the future. Real time was not even a glimmer in anybody's eye back then. That's what I love, is the real time nature of the way we can track this and react in the marketplace so nimbly today.
Yes, and we really have to. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's really exciting to know on a daily basis how well are we doing, what's selling, what's not selling, where's the opportunity to extract some more revenue. How do we, you think back to the old menu mix, right? We had dogs and stars and all that. Now we can do that on a real-time business.
Snowplows,
basis.
right?
Yes, exactly. Only developed by someone from the East Coast, right?
Yes.
Snowplow.
Yes. And there was stars. I forget. There were 4 categories. I can't remember exactly what they were.
Yeah, stars and dogs.
And dogs, right?
All of those. Yeah.
And it's interesting when I look back in the mid to late 80s, I started my own company, and I remember I took a class called info marketing. And man, that was like a whole new word. Nobody had, and I got this big, thick book of data and how to access, and it was the beginnings. And everybody said, "What are you looking at this? What are you?" But like you, I had a nose for this, and I loved to understand how the consumer is behaving. And talking about that, those of you that don't know about the William F. Harrah College of Hotel Administration at UNLV, you should really go online and Google it and learn about it, because Dean has built an incredible new facility, an incredible new school, unbelievable kitchens and laboratories and beverage programs. And it's in the Bar Rescue episode. We get a chance to show people a bunch of the new facilities in the episode, which I was very proud to do. But it's really special. And you've been a real innovator in education, the way you've approached it and the acclaim that you've received. And last year, if I'm not mistaken, I might be a year off, you became #1 ranked.
Yes, we actually been number one ranked for a couple of years.
Okay, I'm a year
number
off.
Number one in the U.S., number 2 in the world, and we work hard every day to maintain that ranking and to move even up to number 1 in the world. And I think we're getting pretty close to that.
So you're a man of great pride, Stowe. You know I love you, buddy. And I think to myself, watching the building go up must have been an incredible source of pride for you. Getting the sponsorship dollars, engineering it, watching people's reaction, because you toured me through it. So you've toured hundreds of people through it, watching their reactions and stuff. I know all that meant a lot. How much did it mean to you when you got the call that you were ranked number 1?
It meant a lot to me, because I think, one of the things that we have a tremendous responsibility for is that we truly believe that we're changing lives through hospitality education. And so by being a number 1 ranked program, it instilled a lot of pride in all our people who work in our college. And that made us want to be better. And when you think of the student, they're making a decision to come to UNLV, or they could go to any hospitality school in the world. So we really look at it as we have the responsibility to give them the best possible education, because we're really, what they learn from us in 4 years is they'll have for the rest of their lives. Yeah. And number 1 allowed people to say, wow, they must really be good, so I want to go there. And that's what's exciting.
Yeah, what was striking to me is when we walked through the building and we walked out to that terrace on the 2nd floor.
Yes.
And on the terrace, for all of you, I wanted to give you a little vision on this. You look at the entire Las Vegas Strip from this porch on the campus of the university. And you realize at that moment that not only has Dean built an incredible university, incredible facilities, incredible programs, but at his foot is the greatest hospitality center in the world, in my view. You think about all the test kitchens, the laboratories, the chefs, and everybody working on the Vegas Strip. I can imagine no better place to learn than under your leadership at UNLV and Las Vegas. And you should be very proud, Dean, because I'm proud anytime I can be associated with you or the university. And that Bar Rescue episode meant a lot to me.
Well, thank you very much.
So now you and I are in an industry we love. We've watched it grow. You've watched that strip blossom. You've watched students evolve. You've watched things like the Food Network bring culinary knowledge to the whole nation and elevate customer expectations. And you've watched technology. And boy, we were on a roll a year ago, Stowe, right?
We were.
Our revenues were great as an industry, right? We could not have been in a better place. It was harder for us to find employees than it was customers a year ago, right?
That's true. Mm-hmm.
Now this happens, and we go through this devastation for the past 6 months or so, and you and I have watched our beloved industry impacted, I'm guessing, in ways I know I've never seen before. I'm guessing you've never seen either.
Exactly. Never before.
So
I think go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to say that it has been devastating, and I think the challenge that we have as an industry, and I think, the good thing about our industry is that we are so resilient, right? And we're very flexible. And you talked about analytics, and that's going to help drive the industry to come back. We've suffered, I'm old enough to know that, remember when the 80s, when Black Monday happened, the market went down, and over time we keep rebuilding ourselves and we come back better. But it's really hard. And I have to pay a lot of respect to you, Jon, and others who have really gone out and done a lot to help bring back the industry, to lobby in front of Congress, to create all the food banks and all the things you've done to help our hospitality workers. And so a big applause to you for all you're doing in that realm. So thank you.
Thank you, Stowe. I've been looking at this process and I've been thinking, being a little analytical together, if you will. And I predicted this sort of in March, and I'd be curious to know, I felt that the marketplace was going to come back in thirds. that the first third would come quickly. That would be the young, fearless audience that wasn't very virus adverse, if you will. And they would jump into the market pretty quickly as soon as we reopened. And I think we've seen that if we take a look at who's out there now. And then I called the second third the reserved third. And I felt they were sort of going to watch for a couple weeks and see how things went. And if they saw masks and organization and it felt safe, they would then come out. And then I called the last third the certain third. And I'm saying, okay, they're the third who's a little older, right? A little more risk adverse, if you will. But they're also the third that has the disposable income. They're also the third that drives the luxury sector of our industry. So I've been looking at this process, and I'm curious to hear your opinion on this. There's obviously an evolutionary process we're going to go to when we come out of this pandemic. And it's demographic, and it's psychographic, and it's socioeconomic, right? As the different thirds and different mindsets come back to the marketplace. Don't you think, Stowe, that after America gets its vaccine, I know after I get mine, the next place I'm going is out to dinner.
Yeah.
And I think America's with me on that. So do you see a surge in our future?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, the process you described is very similar to like the product life cycle that we've been studying across multiple industries, multiple products for years. So it's following that same pattern. And I think there is huge pent up demand. And I think what's really important to remember is that in the last crisis that we had was more financial crisis. And so people were really hurt financially. I mean, not just our industry, but across all industries. I think the fundamentals of the economy are very strong currently.
Yep.
And so the people who are not spending money on leisure and entertainment now are saving that money. And there is a huge pent-up demand. And I think you're absolutely right. Once a vaccine comes, people are going to start buying, they're going to start going out, and our industry is going to come back. And I think what's exciting about the industry, and you know this because of the analytics and how we've gotten much smarter about what we do, we'll come back more resilient. We'll come back with better product offerings. We'll come back as better operators, and we'll be able to, keep that revenue that we're bringing in, right? And so I'm really bullish on the industry, not just because I'm in the hospitality school, but I think it's a business that, our business, if you think about it, we attract very creative people, we attract very innovative people, and we attract a lot of risk takers. And so there's going to be people looking at our industry now who are already currently in it, who might want to be in it, who are saying, this is a huge opportunity for me to get in and do some really cool stuff. Yeah. So I agree with you 100%.
So I have my Taffer's Tavern franchise, and we're selling franchises. We're doing really good. And people that are buying franchises now are saying, Jon, great locations are going to be coming available these next few months. We want to seize the opportunities that are ahead. Stowe, when I think about this, I think to myself, okay, we are, the 50% estimates that we could lose 50% of the independent restaurant operators. I think those are fathomable numbers. I'm guessing you would agree with me on that. Yes. I've heard numbers up to 85% fallout. I'm not certain I buy in that, but it is probably 6-7% a month that we lose as restaurants run out of resources. And the longer this goes on, I'm sure you agree with me, the longer this goes on, the greater the casualty rate is going to be as far as lost businesses.
Absolutely.
Close. I've been struggling with advising people, whether it be on news channels or my podcast, on, we have a certain amount of money in our bank. Do I spend it all sustaining myself during the market disruption and trying to survive when I'm inherently going to bleed? Or do I hold back those resources until the market disruption is over so that I have the resources to proceed? And I think that's a very scary decision for people now. And I've known, and I'm curious to hear your comments on this because you're so analytical. For me, Stowe, it's been a lot easier to open restaurants than it's been to close them.
Yes. No, I think the challenge that we have is that while we want to keep our business, I think what we really have to, the challenge we have is we have to really think long-term, right? We have to think of what's the best long-term value for my business and for my employees. Yeah. And I think what happens is, as a restaurateur, we have employees that we love, we work with very closely. And the thought of having to close down to reserve cash, to reserve our business for the future, it's very hard because we have to let people go. Or put them on furlough. But I think that the idea is that if we truly believe we have a great business and a great sustainable model, then it's my belief that let's marshal our resources, keep our powder dry, so that when business does come back, then we can hire those people back and really trying to create do the things that we can to help our employees who we have to put on furlough, take care of their basic expenses, do what we can, but then save the powder so that when business opens up, we can still be there. Because we don't want to, in my view, we don't want to just waste money that we don't have when we know we can't survive, right? But if we really think long-term, then we'll start marshaling our resources.
Boy, so you and I agree completely on this. And this is the message that I've been trying to send out for months, is that people think it's going to end next month. It's going to end next month, but it doesn't end. And that's when we run out of powder, to use your term. And then we're in big trouble. So you got to hold some of the powder back so that you have the resources to seize it when the market's disruption starts to subside. And that's what worries me, is that as an industry, we're disposing our resources now when we don't have the opportunity to dig out, and we're going to run out of those resources. So I really think that federal government program now is very important. I think the PPP program helped our industry hugely. I'm sure you agree.
Absolutely.
I think that there's some inventory credit programs from the feds tax-wise that could make a lot of sense. Restaurants are going to have to invest substantially in inventory. And certainly from the supply side, the farmers want us to do that and the distributors want us to do that. So I think that that's really important. And I think if the federal government stepped up with a revised PPP plan, so we could get some payroll stimulus and some type of an inventory credit to get us going, I think that it would make a huge impact. And I'm worried because they're not talking about these things now in Washington.
No, and they really have to be, because if you look at our industry, as you know, I mean, we're the largest industry in the world, travel and tourism, which includes obviously restaurants. We employ so many people. We're so many small businesses, and we absolutely have to, that's the fabric of our country, right? It's the independent restaurants. And you think of how restaurants, how they take an urban environment and create this really cool stuff. And if you can't imagine the impact, just close your eyes for a second and think of all the restaurants that think if all of them were gone, what would those buildings look like today?
Yeah, I agree.
Right. And we have to do something to protect the independent restaurant, because that's the future of really our country in terms of people working and jobs. And really, I think the bigger thing is it's opportunity. Like I always say, and this is the philosophy of our college, UNLV, it doesn't matter what your mom or dad did. If we give you an incredible education in terms of the hospitality industry, we can change your life and you can have a life that you never imagined. And so it's an industry that you can just start in and you can grow as far as you want to grow. And having that opportunity, it's not only for the government to think about it, it's not only protecting the person today, it's really projecting 4 to 5, 10, 15 years out, where those people that we've created, kept them working now, they've learned more, they've gone on to start more businesses, they're starting to hire more people, and it's a cycle that just keeps going on and on.
Yeah.
And that's, again, thinking really long term.
And when you look at the restaurant numbers, because I just did this on Fox News the other day, 1 million independent restaurants coast to coast, 16 million employees, the highest employer of minority managers in America. I didn't know that stat, which is a very powerful statistic and a very important one as well. And then the other one that really got me, Stowe, was 70% of the owners own one unit. So they're very ma-pop, they're very family. And I remind people that the second public building built in America was a pub. The first was a church. And George Washington was our first distiller, Stowe. And that, this industry is embedded into the community, into the fiber of America. And there is no business that is more community-based, more socially significant than a restaurant industry in every community. The only thing you could say is greater is a religious institution, really, Stowe, with regard to how many people we touch, the congregation aspect of our business and such. So now with everything going on, of course, and sanitation now becoming a much bigger word, and process is a bigger word, and trust being a much bigger word, what are you doing in the university now to change education? And how is this changing your curriculum, or is it?
Well, that's a great question. And I'd like to think that it was foresightful, but I think probably there's a lot of luck involved in that. I've always realized that what's sort of the trend in hospitality education is to become kind of a business school with hospitality examples. And my alma mater, Cornell, they took their hospitality school, merged it into the College of Business. Yeah. Michigan State did the same thing, Denver. And I really felt, going back to my philosophy, that we change lives through hospitality. I felt that it was very important that we have a curriculum that allowed us to focus on so many aspects of the hospitality industry, whether it be restaurants, meetings and events, sports, etc. So about 2 years ago, we went through a huge restructuring to really understand our curriculum and really develop a curriculum for the future. So starting this year, we basically reduced the core number of credits a student had to take and allowed them to take really 30 credits of electives, which is about 10 courses. And 5 courses would be a concentration. So now we have the flexibility. We could have a concentration in fast casual restaurants, in fine dining, in spirits. And so our curriculum is adjusting as our industry adjusts. We can then change our curriculum because students have the flexibility to go into those areas that they really want to learn more about. And analytics being a prime example.
That's
before
exciting.
We didn't have enough courses, so it's really exciting.
It's so I can really pick my destiny in the hospitality industry in education, which I really couldn't before, because it was much more generic in its approach, if you will.
Exactly. Everybody took the same courses. Yeah. It was very lock-stop. Now all of a sudden you can say, well, I really love analytics, so let me go out and take a couple courses on analytics. Let me do an independent study with the restaurant company to focus on analytics, and so we're able to develop some really cool concentrations.
That's awesome.
I just have to say one thing, we're going to be developing, and I think we're the first school in the nation to develop a concentration in fast casual restaurants. And because of the generosity of the Panda Charitable Foundation, which is the charitable foundation of Peggy and Andrew Churn for Panda Express, they've given a $5 million gift to the college.
Wow.
Where we can develop a concentration in fast casual.
Wow.
And we're really excited about that. And had we not had to change in our curriculum, we wouldn't have been able to do that because we wouldn't have had room in the curriculum, and now we can. So we're very excited about that.
That's incredible. Yeah. And what a donation and what confidence in the university and the program. And I know those things mean so much to you because you can do so much with those resources. So that's exciting. Absolutely. And fast casual is such an important sector when you look at the future of our industry.
It's huge. It's yes. And obviously a segment that has maintained fairly well is the fast casual segment. And I think students sometimes they think about fast casual, but they don't see the incredible opportunities in terms of growth opportunities and excitement about the industry. But that's just one example, of what we're doing in our college. I mean, there's certainly the whole area of fine dining, which will not go away, right? And now and you think about fine dining, there's so much involved in that, just in terms of thinking about the space in the hotel. How do you manage that? And so we have a lot of opportunities, I think, with our new curriculum. And I could go on and on talking about it, but it's exciting.
Well, it's fun to watch the look on your face because you light up when you talk about these things. Yeah, you have since I met you. I know beverage programs and nightlife programs were something that you've always wanted to develop. Is that still something in your planning?
Absolutely. And again, with this new curriculum, you think about spirits, and certainly this is your area of expertise. I mean, spirits is totally different than wines, right?
You bet.
And so now you think about it, you could come out of UNLV with 2 concentration, one in spirits, where we learn all about the different types of spirits and how they come together and how you make great drinks and how you create experiences with using spirits. You could also then come out with a concentration in wines, and we're working very closely with the different wines, like the wines.
Sommeliers.
The certifications, yes, okay. Sommeliers.
Yep.
So you can come out and be, take the certification programs. So when you graduate, you probably have some of the certifications that a restaurant company would love to see. Yeah. And before we could never do that, but now you can do that while you're studying. Yeah. And that's what we think is really important.
What great depth that is, and how you're arming for success, in a way that's so different than even just a few years ago, which is really exciting. So it's moving faster, isn't it?
it's moving really faster. And I think what everybody's realizing is that we're creating great experiences, right? So how do we create great experiences through a great beverage program, a great spirits program, through a great, meetings and events program? But then obviously we have to be able to make sure that we make the money. And so that becomes important. And nightlife, as you mentioned, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Studio 54 came about, right? And I remember, and I don't look like a clubber, so I'm not a clubber. And you think, well, how could that ever survive? But if you look at and there's a great example of innovation, right? The nightclub business always just keeps reinventing itself over and over again. And there's a lot of skill to that, right? It's not just luck. It's not someone who comes up with an idea. And how do we, our goal is to bring in a lot of what we would call industry experts to teach those kind of classes. So you bring in someone who's an expert in nightlife, and they're teaching a class in nightlife to our students. And now all of a sudden you've lit a candle under somebody who goes, oh my God, I didn't know I could have a job in this thing and make money and then help employ other people. And that's why I love my job every day.
Yeah, it's
because
special.
we get to think about that stuff. It's special.
Chefs kick me under the table when I say this, but these days, we have had such a chef-driven industry for a number of years, where it's all about chefs and chef branding and chef identity. And I made a statement a few months ago in my creation of my Taffer's Tavern concept and working with sous vide kitchens and all of those things.
Yes.
I've seen a real shift in the industry that it almost starts with technology. And then you build the food into the technology program rather than starting with the food and building the technology around the food. I'm really seeing a shift almost to the point, and this is when I get kicked under the table, Stowe, and I'm not trying to put you in a box here, buddy, where the future of restaurants is almost more technology than chefs today.
Absolutely. So as you know, one of the largest food service equipment manufacturers in the world is a company called Well-Built, which makes many different types of equipment. And they have chosen UNLV to be as one of their strategic partners. So we had their board of directors for the company come out to Vegas last year, and we held their annual meeting in our college. And we talked a lot about how technology is driving. We talked a lot about these combi ovens that Well-Built gave us in our kitchen, which you've seen. And I was over in China, and I was in Shanghai, and I went to their plant, and it turns out that, as you probably know, the Kentucky Fried Chicken, all their units across China, the only things they really have in there they have the combi ovens, and they can cook different types of products on different levels, and all the technology allows you to do all of that so that you can get high volume and without a lot of cost. And I think you're absolutely right. The technology is going to drive our business, and especially when you think of ghost kitchens, right?
Yes,
how do we take a great product and how do we put it to scale?
Yeah. So commissary kitchens.
We will have, right.
And ghost kitchens, satellite kitchens, as we call them, is the future. So when I created Taffer's Tavern, we went on a model of, could we create a great, really high quality casual restaurant with no raw protein in a restaurant and no hood? That was our challenge. So we worked in sous vide test kitchens for almost 2 years to create products and technology and bring it all together. And son of a gun, we did it. But Stowe, I don't think we could have accomplished that 5 or 6 years ago. I don't think the technology was even where it is now. But the ability to control consistency today through technology is remarkable. It's exciting. So I'm guessing your technology partnerships are every bit as important today as educational partnerships.
Absolutely. And I think, going back to our new curriculum, we're going to have a course just in food service equipment and design.
Yeah, it's that important.
And so when I got married, I just loved kitchens, and I loved going into kitchens. And on my honeymoon, I took my wife to Quebec City, and the British Navy was in town, or the French Navy. And I made her go onto a ship just so I could go down and see the kitchens. And to think that now I'm at a college where we can actually teach a whole semester on technology and food service equipment and all the different things, it's exciting, because you're right. That's what's going to drive the consistency and the scalability of what we're trying to do.
And when we were finished, we wound up with a kitchen about 40% the size of a normal kitchen. All the equipment is inset into walls. So there's no counter space. There's no tops or sides of any equipment. It's fascinating. I'll send you pictures when we're finished with you. You'll get a kick out of it.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to.
So, Stowe, when you look forward right now, as we sit here together, we have some pretty experienced eyes, you and I. And, we know that there's a vaccine in our future. We're looking at our amazing destination and city, Las Vegas, still struggling, of course, still some casinos closed and everything. Where do you see us in a few months? What's your vision, and what are you teaching the marketers now at the university? Give us a snapshot of what you see.
Well, what I see is kind of the sort of the curve that you talked about earlier, where it's going to be a slow, steady curve. We're going to start seeing more and more, visitors coming back to Las Vegas. I think we're going to see more and more the use of really analytics to understand our different customer segments. So in other words, instead of doing the sort of mass marketing that we've done forever, it's really much more targeted audience, targeted marketing, really looking at what we would call the lifetime value of the customer. And how do we create a unique experience for that guest? In other words, Jon, you and I are probably around the same age, but we probably have very different likes in terms of what we want to see in our rooms. And so then now all of a sudden I can target what the kinds of entertainment, the kind of things I'd like to do to me, we can target to you. We're both staying at the same property, but we're getting a very great experience. And now all of a sudden, as a consumer, we're saying, oh my gosh, that was a great product because I went there and they knew everything about me and they took really good care and it was a frictionless travel. And I see that's really the future, is creating one-on-one individual experiences. And, it's interesting because you think about companies like Amazon who will send you an email about the kind of book you think you should read because of your past purchases. Yeah. We're seeing that now be incorporated into hospitality.
And
it's good.
It's wonderful. It's almost years ago when I used to work with Ritz-Carlton, Stowe. There was always two things that I always thought was wonderful about Ritz-Carlton was their expression, ladies and gentlemen, taking care of ladies and gentlemen. I always loved that. I thought that was a great expression. And, of course, the whole premise of anticipating guest needs. And, of course, when we anticipate instead of react, we always win on that deal. So analytics allow us to anticipate and allow us to adapt and provide that kind of customized experience that assures we get them back.
Yeah, and I think if like I remember when I was first entered the hospitality business as once I got out of the kitchen and I started working on the front of the house, we had a book that had all the handwritten notes about the guests, what they liked and everything like that. So I memorized this book and I became like the main person to go to. And I think what happened over hospitality is we started in that area where the general manager and the staff, they knew everything about the customer, so they gave that great experience. We kind of sort of moved away from that as we saw a lot of growth and we kind of focused less on the customer and more in other areas. Now, all of a sudden with technology, now that information is at everybody's fingertips. So I can be starting the first day, but I can pretend I've been there forever because I have all that information on the guests. And so hospitality is coming back to be true hospitality. And that's, to me, what is really exciting.
It's amazingly exciting. And now with these automations and systems we have in place, it's much easier to adapt and be nimble to facilitate those customer needs. It's really an exciting time. So when you look at the experience future of Las Vegas, you see it as really exceptional. You see us developing this next level of adaptable product offerings, if I can use that term, and us being a leader in that regard. That's exciting. Stowe. And when you think about that impact on a family traveler versus a couple versus a conventioneer versus a leisure travel, those experiences need to be so differently defined. So typically they choose their hotel based upon that experience. What you're saying is those differing experiences will happen within the same property now.
Exactly. And I think, this is why I'm so bullish on Las Vegas. If you look at the history of Las Vegas, we're always reinventing ourselves, right? And the rest of the world is following what Vegas does in terms of its technology, in terms of its innovation, and how it changes and adapts the customer. So I think there's a lot of exciting stuff happening. And I mean, you have a mega resorts where you have so many different sort of sub-brands within those areas. Yes, we can create unique experiences for every customer. And Vegas is great at that. And I think that's why we're going to become, we're really the knowledge capital of the world for hospitality.
I
So
agree with
it's
that.
exciting times.
So I think that we're not only the example for the world, but I think as a result of this pandemic, international travel is not going to be as appealing as it was before this, which I think domestic travel is going to take a nice positive increase due to the reduction in international travel. And I can think of no domestic destination better, of course, than Las Vegas. So I'm with you, Stowe. I see a lot of positive. You said something a couple minutes ago I'd like to end the podcast with, and I think this relates to everybody, and I teach this in my programs. And Stowe just mentioned the lifetime value of a customer. You know, years ago I knew a guy by the name of Stu Leonard who owned a dairy in Connecticut, and the average supermarket in America did about $250,000 a week with about 3,000 or 4,000 items on their shelves. And I remember, Stowe, when Stu did $2.5 million a week with 700 items on his shelves, right? And he blew away all the numbers in the retail business. And he too was an analytical monster in the way he went about his business. And he would tell a story of a woman who's downstairs buying a $2 gallon of milk, and she's complaining about the $2 gallon of milk. And he goes down and he gives her the milk for free, or he does whatever he does, and he turns around and he gives the lesson. He goes, you know, this woman's going to come to this market 3 times a week for 5 years. She's going to spend X amount of dollars every time she comes to this market 3 times a week for 5 years. This woman is the $80,000 woman. This is not a $2 transaction. This is a $2 installment on a $50,000 transaction and investment. And too often businesses lose sight with that, Stowe. And you know, you and I live with this every day, but out there in the field, these are lost. And we look at a customer and we see the face value of a single transaction. And boy, is that a mistake. And it equates to every... Please, Stowe.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just going to agree with you. You're absolutely correct. Is that the long-term value of the customer is what it's all about. So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, so we agree on that. So when these restaurant operators now don't invest in the guest and invest in the experience and invest to get them back, those are the operators that don't see the long-term potential of that customer and the depth of the financial relationship that we could potentially have with everybody who walks through our front door. So I suggest that every guest is coming with an installment payment. And that installment payment is one of many. And if we do a good job, Stowe, I can count on a bunch of installment payments to come. And if I don't do a good job, I don't get any more installment payments and I'm done. And that really is our industry in the most simplistic of sense. And I know you agree with that.
I do, and I think it becomes even more, and I teach a case in my executive ed classes where we really take a look at the lifetime value of the customer and the impact of word of mouth, right? Yeah. So you have that positive customer who you're making the investment in, and they go out and they tell all their friends. You're going to get a percentage of those people that come, yep. Right? And so the lifetime value becomes even more important because of social influence. Right. And whenever we think about going to a restaurant, we always ask a friend, hey, did you like it there? And if they are really enthusiastic about it, then we absolutely go there. Yeah. And the analytics now allows us to really help identify which of those customers, not only is their lifetime value what they're spending with us, but how value are they in terms of an influencer of other people.
Yeah,
that's powerful. What gets really exciting.
Yeah, that's really very powerful. Yeah, that's when your footprint grows massively.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, Stowe, and you know, anybody who's listening to this podcast who thinks that right now, based upon what we're going through, is a reason not to enter the hospitality industry or a reason not to go to hospitality education, I think you're nuts. I think that our industry is evolving. I think there's very exciting times ahead of culinary and technical innovation and experiential innovation, brand innovations. I think, Stowe, that the future of our industry, it's a little like a forest fire. The trees burn down, but then the little buds come up. And those little buds are exciting. And there's a lot of different kinds of little buds, and they're all over the place. I think that's where we're getting to. And I just wanted this to be an opportunity for people to hear you, be inspired by the work that you're doing at UNLV, be inspired by our industry, and not be discouraged by today. Because when you look at the future of our industry, it's still the greatest industry in the world, Stowe, and I know you agree with that.
It absolutely is the greatest industry in the world. And I would encourage all those who are listening to take a look at it. If you're a high school student and you're thinking you'd like to look at hospitality, come take a look at UNLV and look at the opportunities. If you're an entrepreneur who thinks you have a great idea, This is an industry that loves innovation, and the stuff that Jon, that you've been doing is a testament to that. And there's so many opportunities. And again, if I wanted, we talked hockey at the beginning, if I wanted to be a professional hockey player, which I would love to be, it would help if my dad was, right? But he obviously wasn't, so I'm not. Hospitality, my dad was not in hospitality at all. I fell in love with the industry, and I have a life that I never would have imagined. And that's what our industry is all about. And if you're the type of person who, and I think most of us are who are in hospitality, who want to give back, right? We want to be like at the end of Serving Private Ryan, right? When he says, "Did I earn it?"
Is that good,
and
man?
we can truly in hospitality say we can earn it because we've taken kids and we've turned them onto an industry that's opened their eyes and changed their life. And that's what it's all about. So take the industry, come follow it, get involved, and there's always opportunities.
And check out UNLV website. Check out the university and the William F. Harrah College of Hotel Administration. It's really cool. It's a great website. There's a lot of information there. And Stowe, this was a great pleasure, buddy. And I'm glad that we could leave on such a positive note, because I see good days ahead. Too. We just got to get past the next few months. Thank you, buddy. I look forward to seeing you in a Knights game in the future.
You will. Okay. Take
Bye-bye,
care,
Stowe.
Jon. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Well, Stowe, thank you. It's an honor to have anybody who's top of their game, number one in the world. Imagine that, Corey. Think of all the universities out there, all the hospitality programs. You're competing against campuses like Houston, which is the Hilton Hotel School, for Christ's sakes, and Cornell, and you're winning. You're providing innovation. That takes changing every day. That takes understanding the marketplace. That takes being nimble. All of us in our lives right now need to be nimble. We really do. Think about this. Things are changing. We're not sure the direction, the pace of things. Yep. Maybe we've lost a little control over our lives right now. We're not as much in control of everything as we used to be, Corey, right? So when you think about all of these changes, we need to be nimble, just like Stowe is being nimble at UNLV. So how are we adjusting our careers? How are we adjusting our approaches? How are we adjusting our relationships? Are we, in fact, being nimble right now? And I made Stowe bring up a topic a second time that I thought was really important, which is the lifetime value of a customer. Right, Corey? So you come to me twice a week. Let's say I'm a bar. You come twice a week. You spend $20 each time. That's $40 a week. Mm-hmm. Right? Call it 50 weeks a year. Right? Times 5 years. Wow, you're worth like 10 grand to me. Son of a gun. I better treat you that way. Mm-hmm. But isn't that life? Yeah. If I look at you and say, you know what, Corey, you're a really good guy, and you are. You're a great employee, and you are. You're a great producer, and you are. Then there's a long-term value in our relationship, isn't there? Right. So why wouldn't I invest in that long-term value, just like I would in a business? Mm-hmm. So when we take a look at what we're going through now, I suggest that, do we need to reinvest in some relationships and be nimble in that way? Do we need to reinvest in ourselves a little bit and change our outlook a little bit? Do we need to reinvest in our businesses in different ways or start a business in a different way? But this is a time of change. This is a time for us to be nimble. And what Stowe Shoemaker is doing at UNLV is just an example of what being nimble can mean today. So it's another week, guys, and here's what I feel, Corey. You know what the big difference between last week and this week is that inspires the hell out of me?
What's that?
We're 1 week closer to the end of this fucking thing.
Yeah.
And next week, when I'm back, we'll be 1 more week closer to the end of this fucking thing.
I like that.
And that's a great way to look at it. So every morning, we're a day closer. Every week, we're a week closer. And the end is getting closer and closer all the time. So, well, that'll do it for me this week. Now, next week, I want to talk about this. You know, we talked about some great stuff with Stowe today. Next week, let's do some audience calls, Corey. I want to get some calls. I want to talk about these things. If there's any young students who'd like to talk about the hospitality industry, any hospitality operators that want to talk about challenges or problems, let's talk about how we be nimble next week. Let's talk about how we can step out of this next week, whether it's personally or whether it's professionally. Talk to you then. Bye-bye. Do you want to see more of this podcast? Then hit subscribe right now. No excuses.